What's up, my people? And welcome again to According to the Lie. And it's time again for some real talk with Mr. O. I want to reflect back on the news cycle week of March 8th, 2021, and give you my insight about the Meghan and Harry incident. I want to echo some of the things I've heard in the black media, but I want to give you a little deeper thought and for you to consider, not to control you. But that is, I'm working on a book called The Lie, and I'm looking at how our Western civilization, how the United States and Europe, how we pretty much we're being led by a real serious agenda. Some of us don't want to see it that way, but again, that's another discussion. And I thought I'd share with you what I thought about the Meghan and Harry, because it's bigger than them. I want to talk about this, the clear people. Like I said, I'm working on a book called The Lie. And this incident echoes, or shall I say, chimes on the thoughts that I'm sharing with you in my book. So I thought I'd peep it and let you see what's coming up about what I call the clear people. Okay? And because I'll be talking again about the media and how the media is that main instrument for thought control, I thought I'd go ahead and share with you this. I ain't gonna keep doing this often. I don't see too many others doing this as much as I can, but just there for my own protection, I want to just cite the fair use. And we're gonna get into our discussion about the clear people. The clear people is a dangerous sect in our society. There are a mind controlling, thought controlling group of people. So let's get on into that. Now that you've seen and you're reading the fair use, let me get out of that and get into what I always like to say to you as we get ready to discuss our topic. Welcome to class. Okay, so now, the clear people. Who are the clear people? Well, first of all, the clear people are connected with, let's get into this right here, the dark people. And that's a serious thing to consider. The dark people. Meghan, like many others, are very seriously misled by these dark people because they present themselves as sources of light. She don't recognize, or she foolishly failed to really see, that these people are a people of tradition, heritage, and institution. Okay? And not only Meghan failed, or probably just put it to the side, or played some mind trick on herself to believe that these are fair-minded individuals that are, they're not the same as they once were. They are a different group of people. But no, they've proud themselves. They've written books about themselves. They've touted their greatness. And as you can see, again, you hear it now, that they are people of great traditions, great heritage. Okay. These are the dark people that Meghan foolishly got into and don't realize it. And many others like her ran along with her, thinking that these people were a different great group of people. They're unique and they're distinct and they're the highest level of humanity, because that's the presentation that we are given about them in what I like to call the lie, according to the lie, the media, the white media. So there they were, running along, foolishly thinking that something had greatly changed. But these people have a heritage and they have a tradition. Now, I know I'm being a little redundant, but I want to emphasize this. European tradition and heritage, particularly this group of European tradition and heritage, when they speak about freedom and liberty, it is accompanied with mass murder. And I'll explain some of that mass murder a little bit later. That's the dark people that Meghan has joined. But she, like us, not us, the people who are aware, but people under the hypnotic trance of the media, they want you to think things have changed and we've overcome. And how could anything of such dastardly act could be coming from these people. They're not like that. But let's look at these people, traditions, heritage, and institution. As you can see there's a comment when once she was asked, Elizabeth was asked about reparations for Africans, enslaved Africans, and those who in Great Britain. She points by stating it was the law. Now, let's talk about that too, the concept of law and government, because that's what the tradition and heritage and institution of these people are all about. Let me move a little further in my discussion right here. So, who is this Elizabeth? And how did England or Great Britain gain their wealth? Well, let's get into this a little bit and take that out and clean up my whiteboard and bring in thus this right here. So you can see what are the traditions and the heritage of these people. Let's see. Here's the tradition and heritage of these people. This Elizabeth, as you notice, I'm saying kings and queens because that nonsense don't make any sense, calling these people kings and queens. But these groups of people, okay, and this particular group of person came from a tradition of this, whom she's named after, or shall we say, acquired the name. You know, they like to rename people in their tradition and heritage. Well, here's the tradition and heritage to look back at. Elizabeth I. And how did Britain gain its mass wealth in this modern society, okay? These modern times. According to the National Portrait Gallery, okay, this is Britain. These are English people, talking about English people. British trading in enslaved Africans became established in the 1500s. In 1562, Captain John Hawkins was the first known Englishman to journey to include enslaved African in his cargo. Elizabeth approved of this journey, during which he captured 300 Africans. He sailed across the North Atlantic in exchange for hides, ginger, and sugar. He returned to London in 1563. Thirsty for greater profits, he organized another voyage for 1564, to which in which Elizabeth contributed one vessel, and that one vessel was called the good ship Jesus. We've been singing about "Give Me Jesus" in our gospel songs and don't even realize what we've been singing about. So here we are. I like how they like to write. You know, again, this National Portrait Gallery. See how they try to sanitize their writing and make it seem like it was just happening out of nowhere. Nobody really knows, you know, how it befell, but British trading, enslaved African. You know, specifically, who are the British that started trading? This British, Elizabeth I, with her cohort of John Hawkins. This is the tradition and the heritage of these people. And these are the people that Meghan foolishly joined and decided to ignore their past. Look at them in the light that the media likes to present to us. And that's that picture of this enlightened group who are fair-minded and humanitarian, and the evil of slavery and racism and degrading people based on their race is not among them. It's not their style. Let me clear off my whiteboard, family, so we can get a little further in here about this. So, who did Meghan join? She's basically joined these people here. Let me bring this over to you right here. She's joined these people right here. She's joined the fake royals, the dark people, the people that have governments or create governments that are like syndicates, syndicated crime gangs. What is the function of governments? Just like a syndicated crime gang, it's the enforcement of laws and rules. That's why she could say, when asked about, hey, don't you think the enslaved Africans deserve reparations for their labor? And she could easily say it was the law. And what does the law do for them? The law basically allows them to cover and legitimize their dastardly acts. That's what we get out of Western civilization. And then it makes it seem so, right, holy and divine, like something that doesn't have anything to do with them. So, how else did they legitimize their dastardly acts? With government, and then there was another trick bag. Let me clean up my whiteboard, family, bring you into the next thing I wanted you to understand about these people. And that is this. Let me clean this off and bring up this second part right here, family. Let's get out of that. And now we're getting into that. Well, how else did they do it? Check this out, family. I want you to see this. They created the stank, I like to call it. The stank. The invention of race through mythology that was later sanctioned with the biblical curse of Ham. After governments have done their dastardly act, the syndicated crime family that say it's the law. But now there was another thing they needed to do. They need to justify their dastardly act through another more sneakier way, I like to call it. And that's what my book is about, The Lie. It's going to point out how they more sneakily did these. Let me get this. Jacob Carruthers spoke about in his lecture, Intelligent War. They moved from just using biblical discussions to sanctify their mistreatment of the Africans. They decided to move in another direction with it as well, accompanying it, not by itself, not to leave it out, but they moved in another direction to accomplish it. And yes, the invention of race is created. And who are these people that invented race? Now, there's always been class, but now race has come along, and race has become a part of a class structure. And guess who's at the bottom of the class structure? So in this, they have invented race. Yes, there were other people enslaved, but their version of slavery took on a new twist. That new twist is that it now took or demoted or took the person that was being enslaved out of the human race. No other slavery was operating like that, other than this version of slavery invented by these groups of people, these Europeans, and in this new twist. And why did they do this? Again, I'm going to cite Mr. Carruthers in Intelligent War. He says they needed to justify the mass wealth they had gained from slavery. They needed to feel good about it. They were going out, on Sunday, talking about the goodness of the Lord and God and all of this. But then on the next day, they was going back beating the African half to death and make him produce and produce and produce. Okay? And there they were in the middle of their Renaissance period. They had supposedly thought that they had reached the highest level in humanity and development. Again, it just didn't jive right with what they were doing. They had to do something to comfort their conscience. They had to play a major trick on their minds to deny that they were criminals and the things that they were doing was criminal activity. So the invention of race had to go, was thrown down. And so how did they manage to pull this off? I want to move on in our discussion. Well, again, let me point this out. We're going to get this out of the whiteboard, off the whiteboard here. And this is what I just said. They needed to justify colonization, mainly for the colonization of African continent, India, Southeast Asia, and South America. And what did it take for them to justify it? Let's move a little bit further in our discussion. They needed to justify it in this manner, family. They got so-called European scholars to legitimize their enslavement of Africans with ridiculous rhetoric. That's how it was done, family. And this is what Meghan joined. Foolishly joined. Naively joined. Foolishly joined. And this is how they did it. Or they conspired to do it. They say, well, there you go. You're talking that conspiracy talk. Well, it seemed as if they had a meeting, and in that meeting, it seemed like people are doing the same thing, or at least attempting to do different things that are for the same outcome that would suggest it was a conspiracy. Does conspiracy make it seem like it's far-fetched? Well, when the end result is that these different things that people do turns out to the same or for the same goal, different means reaching the same goals, well, conspiracy, plan, purpose sounds synonymous to me. Okay, let's look at these so-called Europeans, I like to call them. And when they invented their version of race, I like to call it the stank. That's why you see that word up there, the stank. That stank is the degeneration, the subhuman treatment, the removing of people out of the human race, the treating people of second class, the treating people of inferior to you is the stank. And let's look at their version of the stank. Move a little further in our discussion. I can be very long-winded. Let's get into it right here, family. We'll get it out of that and get into that scholarly approach. Here we are now. Let's put that up there. Get into that. So, with this right here, based on pseudoscience, and it is pseudoscience, family. It is pseudoscience. They reinforced by biblical overtures. And what I mean by that, let's look at this. One of their renowned and most noted, so-called great thinkers was, let's put him up there, Mr. Baron de Montesquieu. I don't care to pronounce these people's names correctly, family. Don't get me mixed up with trying to give them some airs that they don't deserve. Okay, so let's look at this. This stank created by Montesquieu in the spirit of laws. Let's see, we're looking at book 15, chapter 4 and chapter 5. In this, and let me share that with you. In this, Mr. Montesquieu's, Montesquieu, whatever his French name, he has a Frenchman collaborating with the British. Okay, so is it a conspiracy? Let's say, okay. And then there's a German conspiring with the British and the French, and and there's some Scottish, working, collaborating with some, purpose, not conspiracy. Purpose is what we have. Let me let you see in his own words what Montesquieu had to say. Put this up here for you, family. Do my little switch over. Montesquieu in his own words. Montesquieu said, another origin, looking at chapter 4, another origin of the right of slavery. Another origin of the right of slavery. I would as soon say, that religion gives its professors a right to enslave those who dissent from it in order to render its propagation more easy. Listen to the words. Those who dissent from it, those who are not equal with it, the right to enslave the others. Let's go a little further in this crazy man's observation. I don't know how these people were considered scholars, almost like they were doctorates, What did they do their dissertation? No, they didn't. This is all based on observations and considered by another group of people as the right kind of observation based on natural law and the natural selection. That there's some kind of way of getting to what Freud got to, the strongest and the fittest survive, but that's another discussion. Look at him in chapter 4 of the slavery of the Negro. Were I to vindicate our right to make slaves of the Negroes, these should be my arguments. Look at what he says. I'm not going to read that nonsense. You can see it for yourself, family. But what he gets on to do is really more dastardly. It's really more dastardly. Let me get into this. This word, look what he says right here. It is hardly to believe that God, who is a wise being, should place a soul, especially a good soul, in such a black and ugly body. This is the scholarly manipulation of putting race into academia. That's what we see, family, going on. No longer did they need to just discuss race over drinks at a bar somewhere. Now it was being discussed thanks to Montesquieu's among the academic. And he pretty much is the impetus of bringing that about. Let's move on a little further than past Mr. Montesquieu's and the spirit of the laws. Let's get to that other person, get him out of here, and get into hello. I know I was gone for a moment, but I needed you to see that. Let's get into the next person, Mr. Humes here. Get that out and bring him up. Let's put that in, as you can see. David Humes, in Race and Human Nature, in his essay of National Character, described 4 or 5 different kinds of human species, especially the Negro, to be inferior to white men. He's called the philosopher of racism. Okay, this is the guy that actually denoted and named Negroes to be inferior. Again, the scholarly work. Where were their dissertations done? Who was this commission that was going reading their work and saying, "Hey, you're right. Well, this is an empirical statement, one that can be observed." No, this is subjective stuff, pseudoscience that no one can observe other than their foul, dastardly mind that makes no sense. Okay, but here, this is the man that designated the Negro or the African inferior to the white man. Okay, that's the ensemble that's going on. That's the purpose. That's the conspiracy, as they like to say. Then let's get past Mr. Humes and get into one of those other noted scholars, or shall we say, someone that Mr. Thomas Jefferson, they like to attribute. You look to his insight in his writing of the Constitution, or his contribution to the Constitution. That's Mr. Locke. This is a British man, okay? Mr. Locke. In his so vile and miserable state, let's see, this is his point of view, a man who was advocating liberty and justice and democracy based on the British Magna Carta and all that old BS that never seemed to benefit no other people but white people. That again they attribute Thomas Jefferson as looking to his insight and his construct on the so-called U.S. Constitution that's supposed to be about liberty and justice for all, but yet you can have a 3/5 clause. Kind of matches their thought patterns match together, doesn't it, family? And that's why I'm presenting to you this fact. Again, I'm still dealing with the clear people. And you'll see how all this connects together in just a moment. So here's what his point of view. Every freeman of Carolina should have absolute power and authority over his Negro slave. The man of liberty and freedom, democracy, but it doesn't extend to us, to black people. When they say give me liberty or death, they mean just that. Give me liberty and you have death. It's never to include us. So let's get out of Mr. I wanted to show you Mr. Locke, but I ain't gonna get into that. We'll trust that you'll find it there when you look up that vile and miserable estate. That's what he's basically saying. Let me go on over here to the last dastardly person I want to document, and that's Mr. Hegel, or Mr. Hegel, whatever his full name is. In his work, The Philosophy of History, he takes it upon himself to basically remove the African from history. Remove the African and his civilization, his monumental achievement, his contribution to humanity, totally from history. That's the function of his work, The Philosophy of History. Now that the people have no history, then they have no identity. They have no character. They have no manhood. And they're tricked was to remove Egypt and North Africa and all the way down the Nile back to Ethiopia, which is where the people of the Egyptians said they came from. We come from the Valley of the Moon, from the where God Happy is, from Ethiopia. They saw their homes extending from Ethiopia up to Egypt. Okay, it wasn't just all at Egypt and developed. No, he decided to remove these people on the greatness of the pyramids, the greatness of the Sphinx, the greatness of the temples away from these people, and then attribute it to a region so-called the Middle East, the Mediterranean. Give it to the Greek and the Romans, and say that they helped contribute to the development of Egypt. This is not what Hegel is saying, but others developed that based on his writing. And then this so-called group called the Phoenicians came along and helped the Egyptians build the pyramids and the temples. And yet we can't find any of the pyramids and the temples over in this land from which they came, as Dr. John Henry Clark would say. But that's another discussion. So here's Hegel doing his dastardly work of removing the history of these people from themselves, and thus catapulting them deeper into a subhuman state, and that justify their being removed apart from the human race, and making them chattel, the possession, properties of others, because they were not. They were savage. They were tribal people who had no character, had no style. Enough said there. And they didn't make any contribution to humanity. Again, I can get into it really deep. So, who is this person that Meghan joined? Who is this person that Meghan joined? She joined these people. This stank. These people, this Elizabeth, endorsed, co-signed, went along with the fraud. The fraud that they had perpetrated. The fraud, and not only that they perpetrate, the Western world has perpetrated. Okay, the United States happily joined this. It's interesting that this group of people supposedly had a war of independence, but the cohesion between these two countries' most trusted allies, one can barely take them apart, tell that they are apart. Even to this day, this country is still operating on what? Old English common law. It's operating on some medical principles, architectural principles, all based out of English academia. And so this woman co-signed it. Did she create it? No. Did she take the time to make a proclamation to reverse it? No. She decided to continue to benefit from it. She endorsed and co-signed the academic and institutional racism that was invented by her people, or her fellow Europeans. And she ordained it and officiated it, and then turned it into the trick bag of the Commonwealth. How did the Commonwealth come about? Well, when the civil rights movement was developing here in the 1950s and 60s, as that was happening, it coincided with the fight for African nations, as well as South America and Southeast Asian countries, decided they want to throw off their colonial taskmasters. And the trick bag that they developed to make themselves feel like they were free was to say, okay, we give you freedom, but let's still be friends. And let's still have a relationship to the motherland. The Commonwealth's trick bag was created. And that's why you will see this nonsense of when these people show up in some parts of Africa, they carry them around like they're gods. Because they still feel like they're part of the mother continent of England. And, they feel like they can go, they did allow Jamaicans and some Africans to come into England because they quote unquote were fellow citizens, but yet when they got there, people out of the Congo go into Paris, but yet when they got there, all of a sudden these expatriates need to get the hell out of their country. That's the stank that Meghan's naivete foolishly joined. Okay, that's enough said that. I've pushed my time. I can get deep into this. I want to wrap this up. But that's that stank. Let me get on into my final points about this. Stay on my notes right here, family. And why? Why was this thing created? Pull her out. We want to get into that one and get into this. Because they wanted to get us into the foolishly believe this right here. They want us to foolishly believe, family, that everything is all clear and you should forget. Forget what I mentioned earlier. What is the evil, dastardly acts that they've been about and doing? Well, they wanted you to forget the British Opium Wars, where the Great Britain went to war with China to counter a trade imbalance. They were hooked on the tea, and they want and China didn't want nothing for their for the trade of the tea other than gold, silver and gold, and basically it was robbing the coffers, the treasury of Great Britain. So here these people, what did they do? They decided to hook these people on some opium, and then the men turned the thing around. And when the people wised up in China, said, "Hey, we're gonna get our people off opium." Guess what? The British did. They went to war to make sure Chinese people stayed on opium. Hey, sound like a drug lord to me. Okay, but they don't want you to know that for those kind of facts. They're not going to discuss that with you. And then there's the Black War. If you Google this now, you won't even find the term Black War. That was the genocide of the Tasmanians, where the British and French basically killed every woman, man, and child. Tasmanian. If there's any person of Tasmanian blood related, they have a right to exact justice on the descendants of those people. That include that woman called Elizabeth I. That's what's going on, but you won't find that going on at the international court. Okay. This woman wanted you to forget the colonization and what they did to justify the colonization and of Africa as well as Southeast Asia and South America, and then forget that they transferred the ownership back to the dark people, as I said, in that trick bag called the Commonwealth. That's what this was all about, family. They want you to think it's all clear and forget. We're all here together, equal, and everything is just. What happened in the past is the past, and let it stay in the past. And it just fell out of nowhere. We're now guilty of it. It didn't come out of our hands. That was our ancestor. That's our, those people did that. We are not responsible for that, but according to your own book. Then they come over here with the Bible. That means they knew what was right and wrong. Then they take the Bible everywhere they went. That means they knew what was wrong. And somewhere in the scripture that says the sins the father shall descend upon to the seventh generation. Okay, they knew what was right or wrong. Even under their common law, they've inherited stolen property, and they must make a recompense. They must make a reparation. They must pay some kind of reparations for the damage that they've done. But they want you to forget that, because now we're here with the clear people. That's the clear people, the raceless, colorless people who wants to present to you that everything is just, everything is fair, nothing is wrong. And who's the main party that likes to push that to us, family? Who's the main party that likes to push this to us, that we forget about these international gangsters who legitimize their crimes under the cover of governments? Got to push that back in front of you. Who are the people that legitimize this in front of us? And wait a minute, hold on. Like I said, I want you to see for yourself the money that was derived, the wealth that were derived from slavery for Great Britain, coming from a BBC report. Check this out. This is BBC.
For 200 years, slavery was a powerful engine that drove the British economy. It allowed Britain's slave owners to amass extraordinary personal wealth. The abolition of slavery in 1834 is often remembered as a great triumph of British liberalism. research, based on a vast collection of documents at the National Archives, is revealing a darker side to the story of abolition.
So, and this basically, family, was the story of, how the British gained their wealth. Reported to you by the BBC. Slavery, the wealth that was developed from slavery, has benefited the modern economy of Great Britain. Untold wealth. But there was a darker side to the abolitionists. What was the darker side? Check it out. They was in collusion with the slave owners. Some real serious trick thieves. And what's the other side of the darker side? That you are aware of the fact that Great Britain was still paying the slave owners for the loss of their slaves up to 2015. The slave owners were paying for their slave up to 2015. Yes, they were a family. I'm going to bring the facts to you. I'm going to bring that facts to you back in a moment. But that's exactly what was happening. Let's see what I put that fact for you. Let me bring this up for you, family. Let's see. Bring that fact over here. I'll get it in there later. But anyway, this is a trick bag that Meghan joined, and she foolishly joined. She foolishly wasn't aware who decided to play a trick on her mind and pretend that these people just didn't exist, that their tradition and their heritage wasn't so. And who was their hero that personified this people and their heritage and their style? Good old Mr. Winnie. I want you to definitely see this person. Good old Mr. Winnie. This man, this dastardly bastard who walked the planet, said he had no problem placing poisonous gas on civilized tribes. I will call him one of their military ops kind of person. Before he became prime minister and afterwards, he symbolized the thought of British people throughout. Are all of them bad? Are all Europeans evil? Well, all of them carry racism. I'm not going to waste time trying to tell the good from the bad. It seems like the good people can't seem to outnumber the bad. It seems like the bad always seem to manage to get their way, just like in this country. They always seem to, everybody would say there's good ones and bad ones, and the good ones are working with us. Well, it seems like the good ones don't seem to, as Muhammad Ali, have the power to stop the others that are doing the evil. So I don't have time to really distinguish which one is good or bad. But anyway, there's good old Mr. Winnie Churchill, who was the representation of British thought. And he put it in practice. Okay, let me get out of this. I'm taking too much time. But who was the biggest representation of British and Western white man thought? That would definitely be these people here. It's all clear. Let's forget. The white media con is to convince us of the illusion of a colorless equality in society. That's one other. I often said that the white media is here to lead us away from the truth and to lead us into confusion and to look to it for clarity, which it will never give. Part of that working is this, to convince us of the illusion of a colorless equality. That's what it's all about. And they do it using their props, their minions. And who are one of their props that they like to use to confuse us? People like this, who sat there in shock, hoping to convince and convey to us that trans thought that what? They asked about what? The color of the baby? How could they? These are refined people. These are, the symbol of humanity. They would not do that. How dare that? Beneath them. These are the people who invented this nonsense. Of course they don't have a problem asking about something like that. But yet they'll put up here Opie to make you think you're in Marlboro and everything is wonderful. And that this shouldn't happen. Because she's, part of the greatness of that these people have created. She's a part of their illusion that everything is doing wonderful for her. So of course, but they put up the props to hypnotize black people. And hypnotize black people for what? Let's get into this as I wrap this up. I'm going to put this in here. What is it they want to hypnotize us to, family? It's all clear. And forget what? The white media con means black people must be conditioned to think that the white media is genuinely concerned about racist agenda. So they'll show you some shows dealing with, some reports and some things that shows they're concerned with the injustice that's done to black people. Stay confused about racist agenda. And again, it's very interesting. One moment, as I say, they're very episodic. They'll report one story that goes in one direction, then give you another story that contradicts that, and then make another story that doesn't relate to anything. And they're out to convince us that believe that equality and equity exists with white people, that we've all overcome. There's nothing wrong in society. Everything is great, family. So that's the con. That's the great con of the white media. Yes, as I told you, the function of this platform, according to the lies, to point out the lies in the white media. The con that they like to start to throw on us. Like, some people think, hey, it's Instagram and Facebook is not a part of that con. Are you kidding? Again, I point out so many times, Instagram and tweet and all of these little social media get their little news from AP and Reuters, the corporate media structure. So let me get out of this. I've taken a long time, a little tired on it, but I wanted to wrap this up with telling you what's the function of it right here, family. This is the function of the white media. White media is the glorification of white culture. And so there we have the clear people. The clear people who are there to mislead us, to lead us away from the truth, and to confuse us. And what are the function of these clear people? They identify with their oppressors. They deny their history. They become self-oppressors. They fail to recognize their enemy. They advocate all lives matter. Silly. That's the people that Meghan joined. And that's what we're being presented today in the white media. That this is a raceless, colorless world. And everything is fair and everything is right. And nothing should be out of line. And this would definitely come out of so-called Buckingham Palace. Silly. Naive. Silly. Have this person join. And thus she now identifies with her oppressor. Denies their history. Their meaning her own history, and their meaning their history. That family she joined. Okay. Sadly, she's acquired their style of talking, their style of smile, like grinning all the time. This little fake little, look like a teeth that roar that wants to bite your head off smile. To make you think they're good receiving people. And they're worried about, they don't have security and a job, You know what their job is? They like to talk about the working crown. I've talked about this in school when I was teaching. The working crown is what? Photo ops. Going and standing in front of charities and making you feel like they're doing something for those charitable organizations. No, they just want you to feel like they're doing something for them. This woman made a statement about it, the Elizabeth person, and they made it a little big boo-doo that she said something. It was of great concern, and they carried on like she had actually given everyone an answer. She didn't give everyone an answer. She did what she normally does, and that is say it's status quo, and we're going to do what we want to do. So that's when I went over my time with this, and I want to go ahead and wrap this up with you, family, and get out of this and finally come to my last thought that you understand what the damage of the clear people are. What's the danger of the clear people? And this is the diagnosis that we'll get from the clear people. They like to say they're the conscience of mankind. They claim they don't see race or color. They place the interests of others above themselves. They instruct others not to see race and color. And 5, they're cowards in the face of white races. That's the problem that we have with the clear people. And we have to, and the clear people are not just in over there in England. They're here in the United States. The biggest dangers of the clear people are in politics. We have them here in the United States. These political clear people. Don't you see this? They're always advocating to be the conscience of Congress, the conscience of the country. They don't see race and color. They always they tell their own children don't see race and color, while the other people definitely see race and color, and the other people seem to stick to their and work together cohesive in their group. But for some reason, our clear people want us not to see race and color. They want us to, see all people as the same and equal. Well, some people are not the same and equal. Some people have fallen from the grace of God and fallen so far that they are dastardly backwards and dangerous. And we need to see that they are dangerous and not pretend that they're not. Okay? And the problem with our clear people is that they are cowards in the face of these races. So that's enough, family. This is what I'm about. I thought I'd like to share that with you. I always like to share this with you. I'll get back to my discussion about mass incarceration agenda here in Georgia next week. But for now, this is what I wanted to share with you. I hope you learn from this and see there's a danger to the clear people that the white media likes to present to us, and we should be aware of it. Thanks so much for watching. And as I like to say, let's be wise out there. Share, comment, and like. And again, class is dismissed. Until next time, you be safe and you be wise in this dangerous world of the clear people. Until next time.